So it is that time of the year where we look back at the worst films of 2024. We are going to celebrate the worst of all of the 113 films that I saw this year. So let's get to it. Number 10 is Horizon, an American Saga Part 1. Look, I'm sorry. There's a reason why the second one did not come out this year either, the second part, because it just was not a good movie. There was way too much going on in this movie. It was way too long. It was so boring that I was sitting there and I was debating whether to get up and leave because I was that bored at watching this. Now, I love westerns. I love the old Clint Eastwood western films like, A Fistful of Dollars, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Like, I love those movies. But this was like Kevin Costner trying to bring Western back, and he tried to do it in a way where he added so much into it that you just sit there and you're like, I don't even know what the story's about because there's just so many things going on. When you get involved in this story, oh no, we're moving over to here, we're doing this one. And it was like, yeah, you could have just made a TV shit series out of this. So for me, number 10, Horizon. Number 9, The Front Room. A horror movie that is just got no horror to it. I mean, it was boring. I'm gonna be honest. I was just sitting there and I was like, is this really what it is? A mother comes in to take over the household, and it's weird. It's just like awful. The performances aren't great, and the story itself was so dumb. And I was just sitting there and I was like, what am I doing? Why am I even bothering watching this film? The dialogue was awful. The cinematography was okay. But again, I'm just sitting there like, this is supposed to be a horror movie, and I did not feel anything. I was actually laughing more so than anything. There was only one thing that was like horrific, and that's to do with someone crapping themselves. That was it. Outside of that, no. Did not find any horror, any scares, nothing about this film. This was just another snooze fest, laughable horror movie. So for me, number 9. Number 8 is Taro. Another horror movie that just was not horror. I mean, look, it had a really cool idea. The tarot cards and the trailers looked pretty decent. And then they went, it's PG-13. And I was like, great, here we go again. And that's exactly what it is. The kills you don't see. They're just like off screen and you don't see anything like that. The creature designs are cool, but they're just underutilized. There was no real eerie feeling or anything like that. And I was like, oh, okay. We got characters making stupid decisions as always. And it was a concept that could have been really good if you just went R-rated. If you just went R-rated with this film, I think you could have done something better, because that's what was missing. And then, the dialogue was awful, the characters are awful, and there's nothing to like about this film. For me, personally, anyway. I just, again, another boring, laughable PG-13 horror movie. Stop with the PG-13 horror movies. If you're doing a horror movie, just go R. Just go in there. Give me the blood. Give me the violence. Give me what I want to see. Taro, number 8. Number 7, A Family Affair. You remember that movie on Netflix with Zac Efron and Nicole Kidman? Yeah. This movie, it sucked. And you know what the most frustrating thing is? We just saw Zac Efron in The Iron Claw. And I've always said Zac Efron is really, really talented and really, really good. And then he goes and picks to do this type of movie that is just awful. This is the story. He's an actor who's famous and he's assistant, and then he falls for the mother who's like 20, 30 years older than him. Like, it was just the dumbest thing ever. And I'm just sitting there. It was unfunny. The characters are awful. The acting is just like, it's one of those movies. Phone it in because it's Netflix. The script, it was awful. The story is awful. Just everything about this movie, I was just like, why am I watching this movie? So yeah, A Family Affair. It's not very good. Number 6, In a Violent Nature. Or should I say, a man walks through a forest for an hour and a half. That's what this movie is. Now, I will give it some credit when it's due. Some of the calls were creative. I will give you that. But outside of that, this is the most boring horror movie I have ever watched. We spent 2/3 of this movie watching someone just walk through a forest. I kid you not. I was so annoyed and frustrated because I'm like, I literally started almost falling asleep during this movie because I'm like, okay, I gotta watch 5 minutes of this guy just walking through the forest. Great. Oh, look, there's someone there. Can we do something? Nah, we go around this way. Okay, another 5 minutes. Yep, great. Oh, whoops, another 5 minutes. Great. Okay, another 5 minutes. Great. They basically wanted to make a Jason style film with a entity that just doesn't die and is after something. They tried to give a little story and it just never was there. And then I'm just sitting there like, what are we doing, people? What are we doing? You wanted to make a B-Tech version of Jason and you still couldn't do that. Could have just done a comedy version of this. And again, the character's dumb. So, yeah, in a violent nature, welcome to this list. Number 5, Night Swim. Well, you can just see where this one's going as well. This PG-13 horror movie. Awful. The most bland movie that I have seen in recent time about a pool that has a entity in it. And the story is so messy and all over the place that you're sitting there and you're like, what? It doesn't even follow its own logic flaws. Like, it has so many logical flaws in this movie that it doesn't even follow its own logic that it creates in the movie. Oh, it's so frustrating. And the kills, I was just like, yeah, okay, at any moment this could happen. Like, can we do something cool? Nah, we'll do it off screen. Thanks, mate. Came to a horror movie to see horror. And guess what? You're not even going to give me that. Dialogue awful. Characters awful. Premise awful. Everything about it awful. Number 5, Night Swim. Number 4, Imaginary. Another horror PG-13 movie about something that I thought would be a really cool idea about an imaginary friend who is evil. It's an entity that attaches to it and then haunts you. And you know what? It was looking promising after the trailers. Smacked on the PG-13 and I was like, okay, here we go again. Okay, this one is just... Yeah. I mean, I don't have words to describe how bad this is. It's beyond laughable at that point. I was sitting there, I was like, is this like a parody of If? Did they just go over and steal the script for If and try and go, yo, how can we turn that script into a horror movie, but PG? It's not scary at all. There is zero scare factor or any horror elements in this movie. Oh, look, a giant bear comes up. And I was like, yo, is that supposed to be scary? Because it's funny, because it looked awful. Oh, man, it was just like... yeah, it's just really, really bad. Number 3, Madam Web. Oh, man, what a horrible movie. And you know what the most frustrating thing about this movie is? You look at that cast. And it's got some really good people in it that can act. And you're like, whoo, okay. And then you sit down and watch it. The villain is the most dumbest villain I've ever met. The most bland villain I've ever seen. The worst villain I have ever seen in any comic book movie. Then I'm like, what is this guy doing? This guy, like, you could have had these people wrapped up like that. Just stupid. And then the performances are just awful. It's so monotoned, so wooden. The story is awful. The actual visual effects are like really, really bad. And then you're just sitting there and you're like, Sony, how do you make Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, and then you make Madam Web? How does that happen? It should just not happen. This, honestly, Madam Web is one of the worst movies of the year by a country mile. Like, the top 3 here are just light days beyond what any of the other ones I haven't mentioned for. So, number 3, Madam Web. Number 2, Rebel Moon. Yeah, the second one. Now, I know that the director's cuts are out now. I haven't watched them because I have no interest in watching them after this movie. Now, I was someone that actually enjoyed the first one, so I was kind of excited for the second one. Well, guess what? I don't know what Zack Snyder was thinking. I don't know what Netflix were thinking. Why didn't they just give us the 3-hour cuts to begin with? They should have just done that, because after this movie came out, it killed that franchise. It killed any of the director's cut. No one wanted to see the director's cut. I had no interest in it, because this movie spends most of its time watching people in slow-mo cut grass. And I'm like, Zach, how have you allowed Netflix to put this version of your movie out? That is the most frustrating thing about this, is Why did he let them do that? Why did Netflix think, oh, we'll do this? It's stupid. And it's awful. It is unwatchable to the point where it killed all my enthusiasm to go watch director's cut. I have no interest in going seeing them now because of this movie. The action's boring. The action's bland. It's slow-mo every single time. Like, this is like it's like a 2-hour movie. But it feels so long because there's just so much slow-mo. And it's like, Zach, I get it. You love using slow-mo. There is a time to use slow-mo. But not every freaking 24 freaking seconds, man. It was just awful. It was so freaking bad. The dialogue was awful. Unwatchable. Number 2, Rebel Moon 2. But number 1, Drive Away Dolls. Oh my word. I've never seen a movie like this where it is just unfunny to the point where I was rolling my eyes of the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my whole entire life that takes itself seriously, and then you watch it in that and you're like, this is the dumbest concept I've ever seen in my whole entire life. None of it makes any sense. And you know what the frustrating thing is? You have someone in Margaret Qualley in this movie who is freaking so good in The Substance, so good in Kinds of Kindness. And then you see her in this, and I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? It's one of the worst written films I have seen in recent times. I just thought it was the dumbest thing. It was just like, how can we watch? I'll tell you what, this is exactly what Drive Away Dolls is. They wanted to make a porno without the sex, without the hardcore sex scenes. That's what Drive Away Dolls is. It is like a bad porno brought to the big screen. Just shit. Just periodly shit. I have no interest to ever watch that film ever again. It is so freaking bad. So it's number 1. So there you have it. That is my top 10 worst films of the year. And obviously there are some other contenders out there that could easily be on a top 10 worst list, because there I've seen some absolute clunkers this year. But hey, we're here to celebrate the best and the worst of 2024. So let me know your list down in the comment section below. Smash that like button, click subscribe, and I'll see you guys next video. Until then, stay safe and peace out.